3.0. It is a reality. It is not going to go away. And there are some major differences between the two tools, the MDS 2.0 and MDS 3.0. One of the main differences is that the look-back period is very emphatically defined as including observations and events that go on through the entire 7-day look-back period. And if it is a 14-day or a 30-day look-back period, it goes through midnight. This clarification is extremely important in that it tells us, in no uncertain terms, that we are supposed to be collecting data up until midnight of the day of the assessment reference date. And only after that date would the information then start to be included in the MDS itself. Most of the look-back periods remain at 7 days. There are a couple that are less. There are a few that are more. So in part of the orientation of this new assessment tool to your facility staff, it is imperative that everybody who is assigned a particular section understands totally what their look-back period time allotment is. One of the major changes that impacts the Medicare reimbursement is that very rarely do the services that a resident receives in a hospital going to be included on MDS 3.0. What that means is that it will not have a place in the reimbursement system for Medicare. We all know that a dash means not applicable, but now it also means that could mean that the resident was not assessed. So that dash has a new meaning. Also, there is a lot of new definitions within the context of the RAI manual. And if you have not already seen it, it is posted on the MDS website, MDS 3.0. The last chapters were actually posted, I believe it was January 27th. It is also extremely important that whoever is filling out any portion of the MDS or has any part to play in the RAI process, that all of the definitions are well understood. It's clearly defined that the physician, when we see physician written in any part of the manual, that it refers to not only the MD, but all of the extenders that are approved within the state in which your facility resides. It also makes mention that instead of the MDS assessments being submitted to a state repository, there is going to be a national MDS repository for the state to review. Because I didn't know if you all had a copy of MDS 3.0, I plugged in some of the sections that we're going to be talking about. The MDS itself is 38 pages. The one I am referring to is the 38-page one with all of the items in it. None of the other assessments that you might look at or might use have any different questions. They just all don't have the entirety of the all items MDS. There are some changes in the completion process. Some of them are 7 days after the ARD, and others are 14 days, which we are used to. You'll see that the identification of the different section is much longer. It's a letter and 4 numerals. So in most instances it's 4, in some there's 5. So you want to become very familiar, again, with the assessment pieces that you or specific directors or managers might be responsible for completing. So our assessment reference date is now A2300. And from a completion point of view, the completion date is this area on the MDS Z0500, where it is indicating that the nurse assessment coordinator has signed and completed the assessment. From an assessment process for what used to be the RAPS but is now the CAAS, the Care Assessment Area Assessment, that completion date is within 14 days of the admission or reentry date if this is a comprehensive initial assessment. In other instances, it's within 14 days of the completion. So again, we are looking at the completion date for the person who is completing the care plan section, and then that will be compared to the entry date, which is A1600. And again, all other comprehensive assessments are completed within 14 days of the ARD. And in this new manual, we have a new reference for completing a significant change in status. Under the old MDS 2.0, we would only complete a significant change in status if there was an actual change in the condition and not necessarily that the resident was on a terminal road. Here, every time a resident chooses to go on to hospice, we are mandated to now complete a significant change in status assessment. Entry or discharge assessments typically are going to be completed within the 7 days of the event. For a discharge due to death, we have to complete and submit the information sooner. We have to actually complete the information within 7 calendar days of the event. So again, because there are some changes in the completion requirements from a timeline point of view, just want to make sure that you are all aware to look at the specific information that is within the area that you're responsible for completing. Now, from a submission point of view, this is a new change. We have to, for all of the admission significant change annuals, in other words, all of the comprehensive assessments, we have to submit the MDS within 14 days of the care plan completion date. Now, for the quarterly reviews where we do not have a care plan completion date indicated, we have to do the submission within 14 days of the MDS completion date. Now, there are some specific regulations that will tell us about when the PPS assessment must be submitted in order to avoid a default rate. We are not going to talk about those today, but again, you want to look into those to make sure nothing has changed from the previous requirements for submission for a resident of Medicare. One of the other main things that has changed, just from a let's look at the MDS and see what's different, is the number of reasons that we have for completing the assessment. You can see on this slide that there are numerous reasons for doing the assessment for a federal reason, and this relates to the comprehensive, the quarterly, any of the OBRA